enough food, enough warmth,
Because
enough
Jesus is the King of everything.
You're catching on.
Everything.
And another catching on. A desperate man ran to Jesus. A desperate man ran to Jesus, saying,
My daughter is sick and dying. My daughter is sick and dying.
By the time Jesus got to their house, by the time Jesus got to their had died. The little girl had died. But Jesus said,
Don't worry.
Jesus said,
She's okay. Don't worry.
And the little girl came back to life. And the little girl came back to life. This just sign that Jesus is king. This was sign that Jesus is king over sickness and disease.
Jesus is the King
Yes, he
of
is.
everything.
In the kingdom of God, there is no sickness. In the kingdom of God, there is no sickness or death.
People must have been so excited.
But not all of them.
Who
Not all
would be
of them.
excited about the miracle? Who would be
I'll
excited
tell
about
you.
the miracle?
The religious leaders, the Pharisees, the religious leaders, the Pharisees.
We keep track of all the rules. We keep track of all the rules. And we're not excited at all.
Jesus is getting too popular. Jesus is getting too popular. We gotta do something about this. We gotta do something about this.
The Pharisees went to the Sadducees. Went to the
We're the ones in charge of punishing the people that charge of punishing the people that break the rules.
The Pharisees and Sadducees didn't like all the amazing miracles Jesus was doing.
How could
Jesus
they
was
not
doing.
How could they not be amazed
Because
by the
they
miracle?
were too afraid. Jesus would take over their job. Jesus would take over their job.
Jesus is the King over
developing
everything.
countries, but also in advanced economies facing growing energy constraints. This
want
is
to
why the next
cover 4
breakthrough in
items.
AI will not come from building ever larger models. It will come from building smarter, leaner, and more resilient systems that can deliver impact under energy constraints rather than exacerbate them. A proverb says, a good life is for everyone. It captures the spirit of living well together, in community,
In the same spirit,
inclusively,
AI must
and
be
in
designed
harmony not
with
only
our
for
planet.
those with the greatest
In the same
computing power,
spirit,
AI must
but
be
for all
designed not
communities
only for those with the
everywhere
greatest
around the
computing
world.
power. The
But
work
for
of
all
UNESCO
communities
shows that small but
everywhere
conscious
around the
design
world.
choices of UNESCO shows
As
that
leaders,
task-specific
innovators,
choices
and nations.
such as model compression can reduce AI
Task-specific
energy
architectures
consumption
and
by up to
optimized
90%. Can reduce
without
AI
compromising
energy consumption by up to
performance.
90%. Resilient AI
Without
is therefore not
compromising
only greener
performance.
but
Everywhere
conscious
around the
design
world.
AI UNESCO shows
As leaders, innovators, and nations.
model compression systems can reduce AI energy consumption by up to 90%. Can reduce AI energy consumption by up to 90%. Resilient AI is therefore not only greener. It is my pleasure to resilient AI.
As leaders, innovators, and nations.
Can reduce AI energy consumption by up to 90%. Can reduce AI energy consumption by up to 90%. Resilient AI is therefore not only greener. It is my pleasure to resilient AI.
As leaders, innovators,
and While government gaining more innovators are participating. While government innovate active
agriculture as well, where we have a lot of leverage. You have material science and chemistry, so we work with vertical AI companies to try and make that happen.
Great to see this exchange. I think we have a very high quality exchange in this panel. Abhishek, I'd like to move to you and the microphone as well. And Arthur actually introduced the fact that energy constraints are real, and they're real in India, of course, and you have such a high population and wide market, and also, of course, infrastructure constraints. How do you approach this? How does the AI mission in India approach this, and what are you doing on this front?
Thank you for the excellent thoughts by the tech leaders. Sustainability is an issue not only in India but everywhere, because ultimately the way AI is being built out. Currently, we are in the phase wherein we are pouring in billions of dollars into building the infrastructure, building the compute, building the AI factories, with the hope that ultimately this investment will pay out. But when we ultimately look at how it will pay out, it will come out through inferencing. And we are doing inferencing at scale, ultimately users will have to pay. So until unless you have focus on efficiency and sustainability, actual ROI on the investments will not work out. So it will be in the interest of everyone, and only those players will survive who actually ensure that per token energy use is the minimal. So it will require innovation at multiple levels. It will require innovation at how do you do the algorithms, how do you do the inferencing, how do you use it, and therein the value of small language models will come in. While it's fashionable to go for a trillion parameter model and more, but ultimately if you are building use cases in key sectors like healthcare or education or agriculture, you'll need to go through smaller models which will be consuming less energy and which will be able to cost less. So sustainability is something that is given. So what we are doing, of course, in India AI Mission and in India is, number one, we are not chasing the trillion parameter models. We are not in the parameter game, number one. Number two, we are not even right now at the stage in which our companies are. I don't think anyone of us is chasing AGI, which is like glamorized by some of the frontier AI models. We are trying to think of what are the solutions which can be built by using current level of models which are available, which can solve societal problems in various sectors.
To have real impact.
Real impact.
It's a plug for you.
Yeah. So exactly. So and when we do that, the cost per inference, the cost per query is something that becomes material, because many of the public sector applications, especially in sectors like agriculture or healthcare, education, for some time will have to be funded by government, which will mean the taxpayers' money. So we cannot be extravagant in doing that. So ensuring that the PUEs of data centers are lesser, ensuring that grid efficiency, we are doing a project with the Ministry of Power, which is, I think, finds a mention in the Resilient Committee's report also, wherein we are using AI for improving grid efficiency, reducing the transmission distribution losses. And what we have felt is that doing it smartly and using technology for doing that brings down the T&D losses by almost 10 to 15%. So that's again a big gain. So we'll have to look at the entire ecosystem, right from what kind of chips you're using for what. If you're doing inferencing, do you need the high-end chips for doing that? So classifying it, having a very sector-specific, application-specific, use case basis approach for designing your systems will ultimately be where the game is. And those who are able to do that will be able to build more sustainable systems. Their cost per query will be lesser, and they'll be able to survive. So we, as government, we are trying to enable this, but ultimately I feel that business sense will ensure that sustainability comes in. It cannot be like that we can consume as much energy as we want, unmindful of the ramifications. Because the funds and the VCs will pay only till a particular time. It cannot be forever.
Inference and utilization.
Excellent, thank you. We're unpacking a number of things, and we're
large
training
from
smaller models and
inference and utilization.
To get the larger models.
Unpacking large models with smaller models and smaller ones. We're looking at how AI can further then ideally through open source to be optimized. With smaller ones, we're looking at how AI
we started.
You started a little bit on this, but let me ask this question of everyone. Quickly. We started. You started a little bit on this. Also, but let me ask this question of everyone. Commercial interests are aligned. First of all, we also heard that business interests make AI more sustainable, which is a hopeful message. But what can governments make AI more sustainable, which to further help? But what can governments, you hinted at public procurement to further help? Do you want to say a few more words on this? Arthur, you hinted at public procurement.
Okay.
Do you want to
yes,
say
it's
a
one of
few
the
more
ways
words on
in which,
this? Or?
in which we can build and make sure.
OC and also from
yes,
the
one
air.
of the way in which.
Regarding the policy and regulation, you asked about the AI roadmap, right? AI roadmap, and then about the how to balancing the horizontal AI governments with sector specific agriculture, right? Yeah, we are proud. Indonesia is proud to be a leader in our region, exploring how AI policy and regulation can be powerful tools for promoting trustworthy AI, especially in critical verticals like the agricultural sector. This one. Agriculture is very important to Indonesia because most of the people of Indonesia, they are farmers, not only in Java Island but also under big island in Indonesia. If you see, there are 5 big islands in Indonesia, from western area like Sumatra, and then Java and the southern area. We have Borneo in the central, also Sulawesi or Celebes, and then the biggest one in the east area is Papua Islands, the biggest area. They still have so much area that can be exported to become rice fields. And our national AI roadmap is not merely a technological blueprint. It is a strategic framework designed to create an ecosystem that harnesses AI for inclusive and resilient system, including food system. So there are 2 keywords in here: inclusive and resilient. Inclusive means it must be transparent. AI must be transparent. AI must be explainable. And we've been having problem with the neural network based system that are the black box, cannot be explained in plain. And then the second one is resilient. This is very important for agricultural-based nation. So the implementation of AI needs a strong and sustainable national ecosystem, like my dear colleagues, Ambassador First mentioned about ecosystem. The AI cannot be implemented, cannot be applied without a strong and sustainable ecosystem that collaborate all stakeholders, not only government, but also business, industries, communities, media, and also academia. So we have a concept of helix. Maybe you ever heard about quad helix, 5 helix, 6 helix. That's very important. So when we are developing the AI national roadmap in the government, in this case, is Ministry of Digital and Information Communication and Digital Affairs, is open a voluntary contribution from all stakeholders, not only the government, but also from industry, academia, media, and communities.
Very quick, because a lot of the solutions.
Our roadmap has 7 pillars that include AI regulation, AI ethics is important. The third one is investment, like this was mentioned before about financing. When I was attending the US forum in AI export, they mentioned about financing. Financing is very important. Without that, there is no AI ecosystem. Financing and investment, yes. And then the fourth, but AI social data. The fifth one, AI regulation, and then the next one, AI island development. The last one is AI use case. So because we embrace this all stakeholders, so we assure there is no one left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, and we can come back to those in more detail later, perhaps in the Q&A, but I really want to thank you for sharing the promising use cases from Indonesia. Very instructive, I think, for this discussion. And now I would like to turn over, you talked about the Helix and how we work together to have the industry perspective from Ms. Ghosh. India, as we mentioned, also co-chairs the Summit Working Group. And so I'll be interested to hear now that we're seeing AI as quickly becoming foundational to agricultural productivity and food security. But the big question now is whether, as we mentioned, it will deepen inequalities or indeed democratize the opportunity. So from your vantage point, Ms. Ghosh, what practical steps are needed to broaden access to AI capabilities so that emerging economies and smallholder farmers can also benefit and fully participate? And as adoption accelerates, hopefully broadly, how should public-private partnerships evolve to scale responsible AI deployment and prevent the AI divide? Thank you.
So what we do believe is that as 100 billion and 200 billion in the first phase, and India will get 500 billion and more, people start using these services. 100 billion or 200 billion in the first phase, and up to ultimately 500 billion and more. A lot of people start using these.
But before I do that, I have to acknowledge the presence of, I think, one of the biggest experts in this field of agriculture in this room, Professor Ramesh Chand, who's also a very esteemed member of Niti Aayog. And I requested him not to come for the session. And I said, I'm going to be too expert if you say, too nervous if you're going to be sitting right in front of me. But yeah, let's see if we live up to his expectations or not. The biggest problem with AI today is that we throw AI at every problem that exists. And we expect that something will happen out of it, right? And as a result, we generalize the technology a bit too much. See, the thing with AI is, if you really want to unlock the technology, you have to know what exactly are you solving for, what problems. And then you have to go deep. Because there are so much that has to come together for AI to work. For example, is the data in place? How good is the quality? Is the ecosystem in place? So are capabilities in place? So AI requires investments. And AI is a pretty deep investment overall. Right? So it's very important to understand what problems do you want to solve with AI. And I think that's one of the biggest issues today, because we are not taking the time to think through it. We keep saying AI as the magical word for everything. Right? So now let's look at the food system. And I hope I'm correct, Professor Chand. I've learned this a bit from you also. But I think the biggest issue today is, while the world is producing enough food to feed, I think, 8 billion people, but there are still millions and millions who are hungry.
Thank you everyone for joining us today.
And breaking it down further,
thank you everyone for joining us today. AI Challenge. You should see first engaged level working on Resilience AI Challenge model. So one of the international level working on research on this model. So one of the solution to register. So thank you so much to our panelists. Another round of applause to register. So thank you so much to our panelists. Another round of applause.
Wars are a big culprit, conflicts are a big culprit, but climate is another big culprit. Right? So this is how you sort of, at least how because I look at everything from a tech lens. I'm by no means an expert in the domain. But when I look at it from a technology lens and I say, how do I best apply the technology to this problem? This is the domain that we have to play with. So now when you look at it, if I have to say, where do I want to go deep? The problem to solve for, at least when I look at all of this, is the biggest problem to solve for in the food supply chain, according to me right now, just purely looking at it from a tech lens, is the wastage. How do I bring down food wastage? What role can AI play to bring down food wastage? So then you start looking at logistics, you start looking at supply, the cold chains that exist globally or not. You start looking at trade, you start looking at geopolitical agreements, because all of that will come into mind, right? Now, in terms of industry coming together to solve for AI, again, if you want the best out of industry, you have to ensure that there is alignment on the problem statement you'll want to solve. Otherwise, everyone will come and everyone will do the same pilot everywhere. That's what's happening today. When you look at AI executions around India and around the world, and because of the AI commons that we have built, every country is trying out the same thing, farmer advisory, right? Every country is trying it out, but why is it not scaling? Why are we not solving for other problems? So again, it's very important to identify what is the problem statement. How do you ensure that when industry gets involved, there is a route to market and there is route to commercialization, because that becomes very important for industry. And one of the things that we advocate is coming up with maybe a center of excellence, a center of innovation that is identified to solve specific problems. I think one of the problems today we have with COEs are you have AI COEs, you have blockchain COEs. I really don't understand what that means. But what if we had a COE to say that how do we ensure that the cold chain problem is solved across the country? How do we have a COE that ensures that climate resilient crops in XYZ areas can be grown, right? And then bringing the industry together to say that how do we collaborate to create, I think gives you the right kind of outcomes.
Thank you very much, Mishkosh. And this is a perfect segue, I think, to our next speaker, turning to the research community and how to really bridge research into advanced AI to more practical tools. So Dr. Pratyahast, I would like to turn to you now for some examples of how these advanced AI tools can really be made to good use in more low-tech farming environments. And maybe you can give us some concrete examples, what distinguishes those who succeed from those who don't. Maybe speaking also to some of the points that Ms. Ghosh raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for invitation. It's very timely discussion. And of course, always when we talk about AI, we often talk about the technology, how fast